Hello there, this is Alina and my channel Enough. Today we will talk about mobilization in Russia and the war in Ukraine. We will find out, will mobilization save Putin? And what is happening, how many people possibly mobilized already, and did the mobilization stop or not, as Putin claiming, and what gonna happen on the front. Will the mobilization stop Ukrainian counteroffensive? So that's what we will be talking about today. On this picture, Putin had a speech and he claimed that 318,000 people mobilized, and he was saying that it's because people volunteering in Russia to go to the army, which isn't true for the most part. Yeah, maybe there are few people who volunteer, but at this point in time, I don't think so. The numbers are different. Some Shoigu said, Minister of Defense said a different number, and then there was a research about how many kind of quick military weddings happened when there are a whole bunch of soldiers at the same time marrying a whole bunch of women. Hopefully they had a option to choose women they married to, and the women had an option to choose the guys. So the number of those weddings, when the 50 people getting married at the same time and so on, it was about 491,000, like that. So Putin and Shoigu are lying. The numbers they saying isn't correct. But the truth is that a lot of people, definitely at least 300,000 were mobilized. I kind of tend to think it's close to 500,000 at this point in time. But before talking about the mobilization, I want to show you what Russian Orthodox Church is thinking about mobilization, and how Russian women supposed to think about when their child is, even it's a grown-up child, but it's still their sons, getting drafted into Russian army. This man is a Russian priest of high rank, and Mykhailo Samus. That's what he is thinking on the matter.
Если дама, исполняя эту заповедь Божию, плодитесь и размножайтесь, отказалась от, соответственно, искусственных средств прерывания беременности,
he is thinking that if the woman, following the God's word about multiplying, and she doesn't using contraception or making an abortions or stuff like that,
в самом широком спектре, то, очевидно, ребеночек у нее будет не один,
then obviously she would have more than one child.
а больше, в большинстве случаев.
In majority of cases it would be definitely more than one child.
А значит, ей не так больно и страшно будет, соответственно, с ним расставаться, пусть даже на время.
It mean for her it wouldn't be as much painful and scary to say goodbye to him even for a time. So yeah, it's no big deal. If you have 10 children in the family, yeah, you wouldn't even notice if one is missing or dead. Who cares? You have a lot of them anyway. So you should be multiplying Russian women, so Putin can draft in the army more of your children and more of your sons, and you shouldn't worry about that too much. Well, one child more, one child less, no big deal. So that's his opinion on that. Just wonderful. I have another video about Russian church and the new satanism kind of ideas in Russia, but I'll give you the link in the end. As to the mobilization, this is channel Popular Politics and their lawyer Alexander Pomazuev. They talking about the mobilization in Russia and the lies of Putin when he was saying, oh, mobilization is finished in Russia. And so was Peskov was saying, the Putin spokesman. And they both lied. Surprise, surprise. Well, all normal people in this world knowing that Putin is always lying, and so is Peskov and Lavrov and all the other authorities in Russia. But still there are some people apparently in Russia and even abroad, which is even more surprising, who still believe in what Putin says. So Putin says mobilization is finished. Yet there is no law signed. It was a decree of the president who started the mobilization. And according to Mr. Pomazuev and according to Russian law, and in majority of countries the law is the same, whatever authority made a law, that authority could stop that law and say, well, that law is changed, or that law is not supposed to work any longer, we get rid of this law. If state parliament of Russia, Duma, state Duma, made a law, the state Duma supposed to get rid of that law or change it. But in this case, it was a Putin's decree, Putin's law, who he personally, as a president of Russian Federation, made. So only him can get rid of that law.
Естественно, как только и если президент издаст указ и мобилизация формально завершится,
only president can stop mobilization, and if he signed the decree that mobilization is formally finished,
сразу же вся система пойдет в разнос. Но самое главное,
the whole system of the mobilization will be stopped and collapsed. But the most important thing,
что произойдет при окончании мобилизации?
What will happen when mobilization really, for real, will be finished?
Это то, что все мобилизованные должны вернуться с фронта.
It means that all the people who were mobilized must come back home from the front.
Или из частей, где они находятся.
From the military units where those people are located right now, they have to come back home.
И, собственно, это и есть самый главный проверочный пункт, которым вы можете в любой момент проверить.
This is the main checkpoint where you can verify if the information about that mobilization is stopped is true.
Закончилась мобилизация или не закончилась? Если с фронта поехали эшелоны с ранее мобилизованными людьми обратно в Россию, значит мобилизация закончилась.
If there is a signed decree from Putin that mobilization is finished, and you see trains of people, soldiers who were mobilized, coming home from the front, this will mean that mobilization is actually finished. Other than that, if there is nothing like that, and there isn't, then mobilization isn't finished. So it's a message for Russian people who run away from mobilization and somewhere abroad, like in Georgia, Uzbekistan, or other countries. Don't come back. Mobilization isn't finished. Right now, it's kind of postponed because there is a official draft in the Russian army, which happening in every fall, and only that is why Putin a little bit slowed down with mobilization of other people, beside those 18-year-old citizens of Russia who are supposed to be mobilized, drafted into the army like they do it every year. And as soon as it will stop, just because Russians dying in Ukraine by big amounts, about 600 to 900 people a day, then they really quickly will kill these people on the front. They will be killed, murdered, basically, slaughtered, as we can see in a minute from Ukrainian military expert. Then they will start grabbing people on the streets again, and they didn't even stop. They will still keep grabbing people on the streets and dragging them into the army, despite what Putin said, despite what Peskov said or Lavrov said. It's all a lie. So for Russians, you can have a consult this lawyer Alexander Pomazuev from Popular Politics and find out about your rights and everything. As to everybody else, unfortunately, the mass killings of mass death of mobilized people happening in Ukrainian front. This is what Mr. Samus from Ukraine, military expert, has to say.
Она не имеет вооружения даже базовых. То есть у них есть, у них есть автоматы.
He's basically saying that Russian army near Kherson, for instance, they don't even have basic weapons. It's not about amount of people there. Russians keep throwing those dead bodies basically at Ukrainians. That's about it. Putin knows that he's lost the war, and he continued to killing Russians and Ukrainians. He's sending those not even untrained. They are untrained, but that's not the point. people who were just mobilized, he's sending them on the front lines on Ukraine. Even they were lied to that they're gonna be trained somewhere for months, and they're gonna be armed. They're gonna have decent weapons, decent clothes, food. Nothing like that. Many of them thrown right on the front, and they dying by big amounts.
Но у них нет даже бронетехники, на которой бы они могли, с которой бы они могли действовать. И
They don't have tanks, they don't have military equipment or any military machinery.
все это напоминает какие-то броски и штурмы, ну, Первой мировой войны.
And Mr. Samus is right, I totally agree with him on that. He's talking that Russia fighting right now World War One. In the beginning of this war, I was saying Russia fighting in Ukraine World War Two, and it was that way for a while, but not anymore. Right now, Russia isn't even fighting like it was in World War Two. They're fighting like in World War One.
То есть там нету даже ни танков, ни достаточного количества бронетехники, механизации для того, чтобы это были механизированная пехота, а не легкая пехота образца 1916 года.
It's not even tanks or anything like that. It's just the people. Not even some of them have weapons. It's like in 1916. The people have basically a rifle sometimes, and don't even have enough shovel to dig enough shovels to dig trenches, let alone clothes, food, shoes. They're gonna freeze, and many of them would die just even from frost. Also, Ukrainians are basically using artillery and HIMARS, and it doesn't matter one person sitting in a trench or 1,000 people. The rocket fell, kaboom, and a whole bunch of people dead. And Ukrainian politician, Ukrainian military expert is feeling sorry for Russian army and Russian people. How twisted and weird is that? That more humane in Ukrainian politicians and people to Russian army than from Russian President Putin and his oligarchs.
То есть, если набрать еще миллион таких мобиков, но без обеспечения техникой, высокоточными боеприпасами, например, достаточным количеством разведки, беспилотников и так далее, все это превратится просто в кровавое месиво, я имею в виду.
He's saying that even if you take the million of the people and throw them in, they don't have weapons, they don't have artillery, they don't have tanks, they don't have drones. It just would be a bloodbath. It's a slaughter. And Ukrainian almost feel sorry for them. Not almost, he feels sorry for Russian people. And he's right, this is how it is. And just today I heard some Russian speaking expert from somewhere, Latvia or something, who was saying, oh, yeah, it's gonna stop Ukrainian counteroffensive. It didn't stop Ukrainian counteroffensive. It's continuing, it's going on. It's just Ukrainians are smart people, they're not gonna destroy and kill bunch of their soldiers for no reason. They just will wait until Russian soldiers will freeze. They will kill them by HIMARS and by rockets, right in their trenches where they're sitting with drones and everything else. They're not gonna throw their people to die under Russian fire. And if Russian in a couple months throw another 200,000 there, well, then would be another dead 200,000 people. Putin fighting lost war. He knows that he lost. Or at least I hope he does. But if he doesn't, it's not an excuse. He created in the country such a situation, so nobody dared to tell the Tsar the truth. And for that, hundreds of thousands of my countrymen, because I have Russian citizenship as well as Canadian, just gonna die. Killing people, innocent people in Ukraine who did nothing to deserve it. Russia started that war and killing Russians and Ukrainians on the same battlefield, on both sides. This was TV channel Rain, and that was a very interesting interview with Mr. Samus. And that's basically what I wanted to tell you about that because there is no absolutely point of killing any more people. The war must be stopped, and the only person who is guilty about starting the war, continuing the war, and continuing it even now while he knows that the war is lost, it's Vladimir Putin. Putin must be stopped. Please help Ukraine as much as you can. And Canada, by the way, sent a lot of over 500,000, I think, or something like that. Warm uniforms, winter uniforms, and clothes and everything. So Ukrainians didn't get frozen there. And Russians will. Russians will just freeze. Some of them already lost their legs in the beginning of that full-scale invasion in February. So now more people would be destroyed, hurt, killed, and many of them are making a big making a statements about what's happening.
Жалко. Объявленная и уже якобы завершенная частичная мобилизация на наших глазах превратилась в смертоубийство.
TV Rain saying that mobilization turned into bloodbath, and they throwing on like a cannon fodder mobilized, just freshly mobilized people, untrained people, and the prisoners, because they don't think their life has value anything, and they can be thrown like a logs in the fire.
Российские командиры заваливают фронт трупами.
Russian commanders are throwing lots of corpses in the front. Basically, they throwing Russian soldiers as a cannon fodder. That's about it.
Глава Луганской военной администрации Сергей Гайдай объясняет эту тактику. Несколько часов ведется мощный обстрел, затем направляют взвод солдат, все они погибают, а затем следующие идут по трупам своих товарищей.
As one of the chief of so-called Lugansk Republic explained that tactic as for the first few hours they use artillery, and then they throw the units of freshly mobilized soldiers. They all die, and the rest of the soldiers are walking on top of their dead bodies, basically.
Издание «Верстка» рассказывает со слов одного из выживших солдат по имени Алексей Агафонов о том, как под Макеевкой в Сватовском районе практически целиком был уничтожен целый батальон.
One of the media said that there is a statement of Mr. Alexei Agafonov, one of the soldiers, telling about how in near Svatovo there is a village Makeyevka, and whole battalion of Russians were killed at once.
Мобилизованных из Воронежа.
They were mobilized from Voronezh, city of Voronezh.
Послушайте, им даже лопат не дали, просто отправили на убой сотни людей.
Hundreds of people they sent to be killed, didn't even give them shovels to dig trenches. That's what the gentleman said. We were thrown in like it's not a forest, it's just Russians planting trees around the fields to keep the snow. So in that kind of trees, little trees, people were thrown into the trees and they were told to dig the trenches. And that's what he said. On the whole battalion, which is 570 people, they had only 3 shovels. On the whole battalion. And was no any supplies. We dig the trenches how we could, and near the morning they started to shoot us. Artillery, grads, and everything. They was just shooting at us. We were just slaughtered. When it all started, our officers immediately ran away. In between of the shootings, we tried to dig more trenches, but we were immediately found out by the drones and just shot at. Out of 570 people, survived 29. Another 12 just completely unharmed, 29. Another 12 wounded, and the rest of them, that's it. It means they dead. That's what told Mr. Agafonov. About hundreds of people dead. That Verstka is a media source. one of the wives of the other mobilized man said, her name is Zlata, she said, more than half died for sure. That's what she's thinking, that's what her husband told her.
Командир батальона мобилизованных, которые проходили подготовку.
Ответственность за гибель этих людей несут не они.
And as a TV channel ran, and I agree with them saying that who is responsible in death of those people, it's Vladimir Putin, Russian president. He started the war in Ukraine, and he keeps throwing Russian soldiers like the tin soldiers or something, or like the pieces of wood in the fire. And it doesn't matter for him how many of them die. It's not gonna change the war. It's not gonna bring him victory of any kind. He will just kill more people on both sides. Putin must be stopped. Please help Ukraine. Thank you for your attention. And have a great day.